Tov Tzadik Hey. Okay, there's like one halacha in Hilchos Chol Hamoed about Avelis. We were in the Avelis part, which is really not Chol Hamoed, so we moved on to Hilchos Yom Tov. This is another project, we're doing the projects that people don't usually do. Eize malachas asura b'chol b'yom tov. Kol malacha asura b'Shabbos, asura b'yom tov. What a start. Whatever is asur on Shabbos is asur on Yom Tov. Chutz mi meleches oichel nefesh. V'chutz mi haitzah v'avara. Except for these exceptions. V'chein machshirei oichel nefesh sheloi haya efshar la'asoisa me'esma. Now, machshirei oichel nefesh means it's not the oichel nefesh itself. It's the things that you need to do to prepare to do the oichel nefesh. Okay? Now let's just see the Mishnah Berurah on this. Bein she'isura min ha'Torah, it's things that are asur on Shabbos, asur on Yom Tov. Bein she'isura min ha'Torah, bein she'isura min ha'shvus. It's a d'Rabbanan. V'chol davar she'asur la'asoisei ba'atzmoi. All right. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah again. Bein she'isura min ha'Torah, bein she'isura min ha'shvus. V'chein chol davar. This is very important. V'chein chol davar she'asur la'asoisei ba'atzmoi. Asur la'asois loymar the gam kein la'akum la'asois k'moi b'Shabbos. Anything that you can't do on Yom Tov, you can't have a guy do it for you. Okay? Chutz mi meleches oichel nefesh. And why is that so? Dichsiv b'kra ach asher ye'ochel lechol nefesh hu le'vado ye'aseh lachem. You're allowed to do that. Chutz mi haitzah v'avor. Prati dineim we'll explain later on. B'chein machshirei oichel nefesh. Prati din zeh we're going to learn later on. Shaloi haya efshar. Why? Diniskalkel b'yom tov. This is a very important concept, and I'm going to say something which is, when I grew up, I was privileged to have this piece of information that my friends did not have. Fresh chicken and chicken from the freezer do not taste the same. Okay? Now, there are many people who I've said this to in the last 25 years, and they say, what are you talking about? Fresh chicken tastes better than frozen chicken that was made. That's anybody who has experienced both of them will know that that's the case. And similarly, I'm going to say this right now because I'm going to tell you a massive chiddush in Hilchos Basar V'Cholov, and it's a makor for what we're saying over here. In Hilchos Basar V'Cholov, there are certain situations which things spritched on a pot in a certain way, that the halacha is you have to kasher the pot. But the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch says, if it happens on Erev Shabbos, or you have orchim, then you're allowed to be mekel. So the Teres HaOsham on this says, what does it mean it happened on Erev Shabbos? So put that food away and make new food. So most people just assume that the pshat is because there's not enough time. You can't do that. So he says, even if you have enough time to cool it off, kasher the pot, and then reheat it, but reheated food doesn't compare to fresh food, and therefore you're allowed to be mekel and use the pot without kashering it. Okay? So this idea of fresh food is a real subject. And if you have something which doesn't taste as good if it would be prepared in advance, it's a chesaron. And therefore you're allowed to make it on Yom Tov. Okay? Because there's an advantage. And similarly, if you didn't have chance and time, if you could have done it, why? If you have something which you normally do a lot at a time, even according to Mechaber, it's aser. Okay, ve'alidei shinoi mashu me'agra deshari. Okay, ve'awal im efshar loy lasoisay me'asmo harei kashar malacha v'oser min haTorah. If you could have had, you had the opportunity, you could have made it today or yesterday, and you just decided to make it on Yom Tov. So according to this opinion, it's oser min haTorah to do it. Okay, it's not like Stam Gzeres Chachamim. V'yesh machmir midrabanan. Why did they have this chumrah? Even though it's you're doing it, it's oichel nefesh. Kedei shelo yaver alav kol hayom b'melacha v'yimna misimchas Yom Tov. Now, what kind of reason is that? So I'm going to share with you what some of the Achronim ask and what they answer, and I think they will have an understanding. Something that's mutter to make on Yom Tov is that hutra or dechuya. You know what that means? You know what the question means? What? Right, and that's why there's no tzad iser al smalacha. So we have to come up with a totally zeitige iser, that you're going to be busy doing things that are not in the spirit of Yom Tov. But as far as the malacha is concerned, it's 100% mutter.
Even though you could have done it yesterday equally as well.
Okay, I would like to share with you. I want to share with you a fascinating piece of Torah. The 19th parak of Masechta Shabbos is Rabbi Elazar de Mila, and the first Mishnah starts off. It says that b'mokom Rabbi Elazar, they were korsim eitzim to make the sakin for Mila on Shabbos. So why? Because he held machshirei mitzvah. You're allowed to do on Shabbos too. If you're allowed to do the bris, you're allowed to do the machshirei bris too. So the question is, just because you're allowed to do it, why were they doing it? What? No, it doesn't say that. It says that's what they would do. Why did they do it the day before? So the answer to the question is, the Mefarshim say, that if you hold machshirei mila ar doicha, it's like it's part of the mitzvah. And just like the bris you do, so therefore the machshirim are part of the process.
Even though you could have done it yesterday.
Right. But it's part of the process. This idea of part of the process exists in many places. I'll just share with you a Mila place where this exists. I just happened to speak to somebody about this. When a bris is done, so halachically there's a need that there be blood. And the purpose of that blood is called dam bris. A bris has to have blood. So at what point of the bris do you need to have blood? If, let's say, when you're preparing the child for the bris, it bleeds, so Rav Moshe Feinstein says that's enough for it to be dam bris. It doesn't have to be from the incision itself. Anything in the process of what you're doing, that's enough. It's because it was in the process of a bris being done. But you don't need the dam of the actual cutting. You understand? So, what?
Doesn't bleed when you cut him.
Well, I'll tell you where it's negayah to nowadays. There was a clamp that was invented by somebody named of Braunstein, and this fellow Braunstein, he went to Russia in the 50s and 60s and did thousands of brisin. Klatstein. This was not. It wasn't allowed by the government. So he wanted to make sure that the bris was good and there wouldn't be any follow-up care. So he invented a clamp. This is hard for me to explain, but basically the clamp was tight, so strongly on the kid that it stopped the blood flowing before it was actually cut off. So you could make a bris without any blood. Okay, you want to know?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, I've seen this. I've seen it done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it done. And there are people who use this clamp when they do bris goyim. This is a clamp that exists in the business. But
He patented it?
what?
He patented it?
I don't know. I don't
What about the
recall.
blood aspect?
So you're usually able to get a drop of blood out. Yeah, but it's not. But very, 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 very minimal. I've seen it done with 3 drops of blood. Like just drops. Okay, that's so. You wanted to know how you could have it.
Very curious. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyways, kol
How
she'eino.
do we get into this in our halachas over here?
Because why does it say that the reason why it's us is kadesh lo yavra yom b'melacha? Why didn't it say because you should be being mamayin in melacha? The answer is because it's hutra. That's how we got into it. Okay, kol she'eino mafik taimo delisha afia v'shchita ubishol im asa me'erev yontif yesh bahem chisaron tam. From this point on, if you did it in advance, it's going to not come out with the right, it's not going to come out right. She'ein lechem hanilish v'nefa hayom kelechem hanilish v'nefa me'esmo. Now, I will say that I'm going out on a limb, but there are people that knead a dough, put it in the refrigerator, and then bake it the next day, right? So why is lisha mutter?
Well, today they didn't have to do
Okay, but I'm saying in the world of fridges today, we're going to discuss the world of fridges in a minute. There's,
It's not as tasty still. Fresh.
it makes a difference in the olden times.
All the times they didn't have a fridge.
I said, even if you left it out, if I have a dough and I left it,
Nice.
it'll just rise more.
Right.
It won't start to rot or go bad.
That's the halachas.
What?
No, imagine you're starting the going bad process.
I don't know. I'm not in a position to answer that question. But I would just assume that these are things that are done always one after the other. You knead it and then you bake it. It's part of one process. And therefore, if you want the baking done today, you have to do the kneading today. I would imagine that that's the answer to the question. Yeah, okay. Now, I will just share with you a psak from Rabbi Yashiv, a fascinating psak that undermines your pretense. Rabbi Yashiv says that even though you have a fridge, it's still mutter to make something that's not going to be negatively affected if you would put it in the fridge. Why? So he says because Chazal were kaveya on things which they get worse. Because you have a way to beat the system doesn't change that these... Right. And the reason's still here. You just have a way to beat the system. But beating the system doesn't change the halacha. Yeah? Okay. That's as far as that's concerned. Avol davar she'ein bo kilkul tam behefsid im nasa miyasmo lama leila soisam b'yom tif. Now, I will just share with you the following statement. Somebody who asks me, they're preparing for Yom Tov. What's the most important thing to prepare before Yom Tov? You know what I'll tell them? Your coleslaw. Because your coleslaw will taste better if it was made before Yom Tov than if it's made on Yom Tov. What are you laughing about? I'm very serious. Right? That's true because it soaks in and get right. Right. Because of Achronim, the Raktir no Ma'aseh Kisvarazu. Because of Odel Fideiza also Lilish BeYom Tiv Lokshin She'efer Ani Lashim Ba'od Yom Tovim Yoser. Exactly like I said, those people who make Lokshin which I don't think we have any such people nowadays.
Pasta?
Yeah, but in my house we make auction on Pesach.
That's eggs.
Yeah, but
That tastes better a day older.
I don't. It doesn't taste any worse. וכן also לבשל פרס יבשים ביום טוב, שהוא ידוע שהמבושלים בערב יום טוב טובים הם יוסר לאכילה אחר כך ביוטף. This is exactly this idea. There are things that are better if they're made in advance. מיהו אם לא היה לו שוהוס קודם לבשל, וכל שכן כשלא היה לו פרס מקודם, בוודאי מותר לבשל ביום טוב. וכן עניין לישו. Okay, so this is this idea. Now it has to be that it's lo mefik tam klal. Mashma de mefik tam afilu b'mixas shari l'kuli alma. It's just going to be a little bit different. Your fresh chicken versus your day-old chicken. Ubamil kosa da osa loduch shkedim b'yom tov lohitzim mehem cholov midahay asher loduch me'asma. You want to make almond milk, you have to make it in advance. So avavisha mefik tam ksas because achon vishamochi hechmer bazeh the damik ksas l'schitas peiros the aser. You're not allowed to do schitas peiros mikol mokom by day shinoi nira the yesh lahatir. Okay, now schitas peiros is a subject which we'll see about later. The Mishnah Berurah will discuss it. Muter lasasai day shinoi is something that you could have done beforehand and you didn't do it. You're allowed to do it with a shinoi. From the asumir of yontim b'pnei eze oines muter afilu b'loy shinoi. Because of Rabbi Avrohom, the afilu lechatchila muter lahamtin lasasai day shinoi. You're allowed to wait and do it with a shinoi. B'sever b'gdei sham efakvik al zeh. Ochen ein lo shos kodim yontim b'vada yesh lismoch al zeh to do it with a shinoi. All right, now here comes the klal.
And that's the difference in this and a little bit on the chalamite. Chalamite, we said the whole thing was you can't wait for chalamite to take care of all these things. You know what I'm saying?
Right, do it beforehand. Okay, here's the klal. Kitzira, tchina, betzira, schita, betzeda. Af al pi shehem aleches oichel nefesh, asuru chachamim. The chachamim aser them. So why are they aser? It says in Mishnah Berurah, Disha, Rakada, Ki Hai Gavna, all these other things, which are love, Litzcha Peres, Lights Mihem, Shemar V'Yan, L'Achilas Yontif, also Chacham, after Minat Torah, Kol Malacha Shu Eichel Nefesh Mutter, so they shall also be Mutter, because they call Malacha Eichel Nefesh, El Chacham Asu, Dvorim Shem Avoida Rabba, Kilgoin Hani. These which are fatiguing long works. Shadam Rogo Liksar Sadei V'Liftzar Kamo Ka'achas. You don't do it for a daily thing. You do it for the season. V'Lidroch Kol Avanav Ka'achas V'Litchon Harbe B'Pamachas. V'Imkein Yitorid Kol Hayom B'Avoda V'Imana V'Simchas Yontif. L'chein Osur Chachamim Afilu Ayidei Shinoi Osur. You can't even do them with a Shinoi. V'Nichu Be'Teira and Rak Dvarim Shemistama Hin Rak L'Tzorach Achilas Yom Tov. Things that you do in small amounts, you're going to do them for Yom Tov only. V'harbe poiskim cholkim b'savin de meleches avoida hanal osir min ha'Torah. The things before Lisha are osir min ha'Torah. Afilu ba'oichel nefesh. V'leitira Torah ba'oichel nefesh elamashu derech lasois liyom zeh. Kigon milisha v'afia v'elech kai gavna. Malacha shem tzorach achila b'yom tov. Uprati dinim eli yisbor b'simonim haboim kolecha b'mkoimai. So we have a machlekes if midaraisa there's an isser to do anything which the kind of work doesn't demand that you do it for an extended amount. You know, that's the subject that we just learned. Okay. Next halacha. Ein motziin masa al behema b'yontif. You're not allowed to be machamer. You can't do this. Now this is a very strange halacha. Lefi das haramo b'sim reish memvov dein odom mitzuva shvisas behemtoi. There's no iser shvitas behemtoi tzach lemer dehocha eino ela iser derabanon shelo yasa keder shu iser b'chol in behemtoi afilu tzach yontif. You're not allowed to work your animal like you're doing in the week. Va'afilu b'rishus echad mimakom l'makom nami yasa. Lefi zeh ein motziin, that she says ein motziin masa doesn't mean motzi as in carrying. It's lav dafka. Maybe that's a chokim. The other mitzvah sheises behemta b'yomtiv kimo b'Shabbos. Of course, again, machamer achar behemta that is an issa deraisa. But the day is also Shabbat kishuta. It's a deraisa kamer machaber. V'da dim nemar she'ei sheises behemta b'yomtiv shach v'zeh kol hadinim hanemor l'yinzel b'chol Shabbos. Okay. Next, muksa avapi shemuter b'Shabbos hichmiru bo b'yomtiv v'asruhu. Muksa is more chomer on Yontif than it is on Shabbos. V'yesh maktir muksa afilu b'yontif, avol noilad oser l'divreim afilu b'Shabbos. And the muksa of noilad is oser l'divreim even on Shabbos. V'chol muksa she'einoi balei chayim, kigoin oitzer she'peris v'eitzim, sagi she'yoymar mikara ni noitel, ve'en tzorach she'yirshom. It's enough if you said, I'm starting the Oitzer. No, you don't have to start the Oitzer before. You could just say, I'm going to be taking from here on Yontif, and that's enough to make it not Muksa. Yontif Rishon V'Sheni V'Shnei Yom Tovim Shalgolius. V'Aitzer V'Shen Yirkol V'Dei Muksa. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah over here. Pirish Talil B'Sivin Shigim Avoid Yesh Kama Minei Muksa Mutarim B'Shabbos. Kamo Muksa Machmas Sha'omer L'Schoira או שבכניסה שלו יוצר ואין דייתו לסתפק ממנה על אחר הזמן או מוקסה מחמס מיוס או כאי גבנה אך כל זה כאילו דווקא בשבס דחמירי לינשי people consider Shabbos a very serious issue ולא חשינן אם נקלו לטלטל דבר מוקסה יובו להוקל בשאר איסורי Shabbos. We're not afraid that if you're makel on muksa that he'll forget about Shabbos altogether. Al b'yontiv the kalile shari habim lochs will term though the tzarech nefesh, so people don't consider yontiv so holy. So we're afraid. The nekel of a muksa yovel lahachal gam b'shari su yontiv. The fikach aksu chachamim the taltal la'ochleim. Okay, the fi swara zu behema ameres lachaliva b'tarnagolis l'beitzasa b'shor shal charisha also l'shechtem b'yontiv. You're not allowed to shechtem on yontiv. Because we see them as non-food items, we see them as machinery.
Tools.
Right.
Which muksas are more machmer? I missed that.
Okay, all the things that are aser mishum muksa. I'll tell you, I had a very big machlokes about 30 years ago with a very famous Rav in Yerushalayim about this. Rav gave a shir on Hilchos Yom Tov, and he said in the shir that you're not allowed to take your soup out of the freezer and defrost it on Yom Tov to serve it on Yom Tov.
First day of the second day?
No, the first day for the first day.
Because
Because it's muksa. And it's noila to change it. And you're not allowed to do it. And this caused, there was about a month that there was a war on this subject. Okay. I think I did.
And what was your maskana?
I think that it's mutter. There's definitely room to be machmer, but I think that it's mutter. For many reasons. I'll just share with you one reason, which wasn't the reason that I had at that time. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach has a fascinating chiddush in Noilad. Your wife serves you ice cream. And by the time you get the ice cream, half the ice cream ball is melted. Are you allowed to eat the liquid ice cream? Why?
It's a derech achila.
they didn't leave it purposely to melt, it just happened to melt.
Okay, I like it liquidy. So Shlomo Zalman says the following klal. Noilad means that you have a different item. Melted ice cream and frozen ice cream are both ice cream. It's not a different food and it doesn't have a different usage.
As is ice and water.
No.
No.
Ice and water have two totally different things.
Frozen soup and water liquid soup, they're both soup.
Right. And therefore there's no
Frozen
problem.
soup you can't eat, but it's soup.
So
Right.
ice, water, frozen water, different.
Because what do you do with frozen water. The same thing you do with liquid water.
Cool things down.
No, you use it to
You use it as a different item.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but it's a different use.
It's not the same thing.
Oh, different
It's
purpose.
not right. It serves a different purpose.
Physical
It's the
side.
same. You just ice cream. It's either liquid or.
You eat it with the same spoon. It does the same. It's
I
just
understand. It's just a completely different purpose.
yeah. So that's a chiddush that Shlomo Zalman has, and there are many poskim that like that chiddush. And according to that chiddush, there's no problem of soup. That's the simplest, without getting involved in muksa answer to
Even
that.
though here one is edible, one's not edible.
Hafuch. That supports Shlomo Zalman. That means it's the same thing. It's just soup that you can't eat right now. It's just like
Yeah, but you
raw
change it from
potatoes.
inedible
That's
to
a
edible.
whole different.
But you change it from
Just
inedible
It's
to
like-
true.
edible.
It's me'achos soup. It was soup. It is soup, frozen or not frozen. It's only soup.
It's just like a potato. A raw potato is not muksa, and you're allowed to cook it on jantif.
Even though you change it. In fact, yeah,
Raw egg.
Yeah.
no, we don't want Shabbos though. No, so you don't have to go nefesh. You're taking something which is inedible. You're cooking it, making it edible.
That's right.
Oh, no, Shabbos, you're
Right.
So what would be nailed on your diff? The yain that comes out of the.
So I don't know. Those say you don't have to be makbid on these things. Okay, but yayin will be such a problem.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Frozen wine.
No, it's like out of the grapes.
Yeah, if the drips out of
Because of the sweet on the
Yeah.
that case.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right. Says the Mishnah Berurah. V'yesh matir de lo chomim b'Shabbos, because the chenu das
Is there any
harishal.
way to understand which muksas are usher? We said muksa is more machmer on Shabbos than as a yotif.
that we're in. Mahmoud.
There are
Not
two.
just that
There are two kinds of muksas.
Yes.
There are muksas that are shaykh to Gezeres Kalim, and there are muksas that are shaykh to muksa. Your watch, that's a wind-up watch that's dead. That's muksa. That's called Gezeres Kalim. There are things which they're muksa because of their lack of they're useless. That is not the muksa we're talking about. We're talking about muksa which it has a haktsa'ah. It has a designation for one thing, and that thing is forbidden. It's a totally different kind of an idea. No, that's the regular muksa. If I have something like kli schayra,
For Shabbos, you have all the things.
right? So there's a question of those are muksa on Shabbos. Okay, that would be a problem on Yantif. That's a different kind. In other words, it's not. It's because they're not. Your schayra in your house, in your store, is not silverware. It's schayra. So it's something else. And then somebody buys it, then it becomes silverware. That's
That's
muksa.
the issue, but what is that?
That's a different kind of muksa. There's, I think, 8 kinds of muksas. And take a look at that. Okay.
I didn't
Set it
understand.
aside.
I didn't understand what Rabbi said about the wind of watch. This degree of muksa on Yom Tov is different from Shabbos, so it's the same. It's the same.
The watch is the same. There it's because you're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to do it.
You mean that means wind it up?
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, but them after yesh poiskin shematim af muksa denoiled haramala rotza litvos kedaita mazeh. He doesn't hold like them. Elakoyson poiskin machmir makapon b'muksa denoiled. Because of achronim the av shebeshabbos noktin leikil lahater afilu muksa denoiled. Lo kebali svorazu mikomokom beyontif ein lahater akapon muksa denoiled. At least the muksa of noiled we should be machmaran. לפי זה אין לטלטל עצמו שנספרקו מן הבשר ביונטף אף על פי שהם ראויים לכלבים מפני שהעשר היה מחובר לבוקר ולא ירחו גם לאדם ואבי נולד. This is a fascinating thing. This subject is what I would call the subject of Ajuim. Okay, I'm sure you all know what Ajuim are, right? Dr. Cohen, you know what Ajuim are? Ajuim. Ajuim are the pits of avocados. Of apricots, yeah.
More language?
Oh, mishmish.
Yeah.
Probably Arabic.
Yeah. What?
Go-going, yeah.
Go-going?
Go-going.
What language is that?
Hebrew, that's what my kids call it.
Oh.
Go-going. I'm not that go-going.
Okay. Now, what is that? A piece of garbage, right?
No.
Depends. Use it to play.
Okay. You know what we're talking about? Okay, so the kids collect them, they play with them. Okay. Now, when it was in the apricot, it was a piece of apricot. It comes out, it becomes a
Prize item.
right. That is noilad. It was created on Yontif when you took it out.
And if you bought the apricot only for the seed.
So we'll have to deal with you.
Okay, deal with me.
No, not now. That's not this is the question, or the case which he gave were the bones of your meat. So when it was attached to the meat, we call it part of the meat. It comes off, it becomes dog food. So it begets a new shame on it. Okay? So that is a noilad issue. Okay. We call muksa koya asvar rishayin the muksa asur l'matirim muksa ein tzarech amila el begregus utzmukim b'shum destama dachinu b'yadayim kishelam l'gagel yashanav dafil b'shabbos aser. Okay, this is a very important concept. When they would make grapes into raisins, so they put them to dry. The process that it goes through is something like a seed. It gets like mushy and inedible, and then it dries and becomes edible. So there's a stage where it's inedible. So when a person puts them onto the roof to dry them, so then they become muktzah because they are going to become inedible. They're eventually going to become edible. But since there's this stage of inedible in the middle, so this is called dachya b'yadayim, that you made a food into
You put them to dry before Yom Tov or on Yom Tov?
before Yontif.
Right. So when Yom Tov came in,
They were in a state of
inedible.
and you were they were out of mind, right? And this halacha only exists by things that in the drying process they go through a stage that's negative. But there are some things that just dry out and they get better as they go. But they don't have this halacha of dachi b'yadayim. Okay, she'en balechaim the balechaim le mahani sheyomer mikana ani noitel al tzach lefored zevez ani noitel. Okay, this is halacha in the kanim, which we'll learn later on, the white ones and the black ones. Okay. Oitzer tzar lemar daita haya mitchila rak lestapik bimeno la'achar zman. Originally, you're planning to take stuff from this storehouse only later on. Hu adin peres ha'avdim l'schaira ha'ba muksa shal gregos etzimukim shal nisyav shul legamri. And it's enough in these cases, say yoymar mikanani kach mochar. The oitzer sheikach mochar hareim kvar shahuvru l'mafreya delahem kiven b'achanosai. I said I'm going to take from them tomorrow, so he already released the muksa on those which he's going to take tomorrow by saying I'm going to take from them tomorrow. The milsa de rabbanon kaim belon de yesh breira. In the milsa de rabbanon we say yesh breira. You know what that means?
Whenever you chose them, those are the ones.
Yeah. So we say that that's the ones that it was chal on. In other words, what he doesn't say is what I would have thought is that they all become.
Oh.
But you know, he's not going to eat that much. Right?
That's what?
Yeah, that's what I think. Ein tzach sheyirsham v'dad yesh kama poeskim de pligi al zeh v'daitim de loisagi sheyomer mikan ani noitel el tzach sheyirsham simen b'mokon shev'daito lecho usorasum kiven de muksa machmas ma'isa she'asa b'em naktzosam, since they became muksa through an act of setting them aside, kagan gregus etzul shel l'galayag li'avshon, that you put them on the roof, v'afilu perish achnisan la'oitzer havi huksam b'yadayim l'mechira loisagi ba'achana chol dehu loitziyam b'muksa. It's not enough to say ad sheyiver yochra perish v'dayto lachem v'yitem b'hem simen v'la'aloch yesh l'achver kisor achroina al kaponim le'yin gregus etzmukim shel l'gag u'perish achnisan la'oitzer v'asher de'yesh lismach asor kama v'ayim b'bir halacha. So here he says the things which you did an action to make them into muksa, you have to do a stronger hachana on them. Okay. Mutar lachem miyantav rishon l'sheni b'shnei yom tov shel goliath. Okay. Ritzad alavet kigoyin zeh shel peres ha'oitzer she'ein tzarich lasos ma'aseh da'amira ba'alma havi hachana mutar lachem afilu b'yom tov gufa miyom tov echad lechaver d'mimonashach im yom sheni kodesh Hari ayam chol umutar lachem v'mayom kodesh u'machal chol Hari ein tzarich hachana klal nimtza she'einu misaken shum davar b'achanaso d'lei asar olav v'hachi asina hachana miyantav l'chavero hecha shu'oisa ma'isa d'chashirin shem machal chol v'nimtza she'asa ma'isa b'yom tov l'tzarich chol, like we're going to see later on. V'chein muksa d'balei chayim kigon tarnagos hobes l'gal beitzim lo yochol lahazim miyom tov l'chavero elam kein zimei me'erev yom tov l'fi zeh לפי מה שכתוב להחביא במוקסה דאקצי בידיים, כגורגס עצמו צריך לרשון, אם שוכח לרשון בערב יום טוב, ונזכר ביום טוב, עושה לעשות שום סימן לאוכל פרס יום טוב שני, דשבע מוחל חול, ונמצא שעושה סימן ביום טוב לצריך חול. And that's called that you have the Isser of Hachana.
So what's the difference between that and the first case where it was mutter, rishon yom tov sheni? Here he says you can't make a rishon.
Yeah. Right.
And the first case was mutter. Why?
No, the first case is talking about you got an Erev Yom Tov. You say tomorrow I'm going to take from here. On Erev Yom Tov I'm preparing for Yom Tov.
But he said even if you did it on Yom Tov, either today's Yom Tov and tomorrow's nothing, or either tomorrow's nothing and today's something. Why is the rishon? What happens when you do a rishon by the time it becomes us?
No, it's not a question of the Rishon. The shayla of Rishon is what do you need, but what case there's no machlekes. There's two. We're discussing two different subjects. One subject is how, and one subject is what. There's a machlekes about what do you need hachana for, and then there's a question how do you do the hachana. There was one question, is the achana of dibur enough, or of do you need to have a rishum? And that's talking about even if you did an Erev Yontif for Yontif. Okay, then we have a question about doing from Yontif to the second day of Yontif, if it's going to be making something into Ois Muksa, so there you need to have, it's also to do from Yontif to Yontif Sheni, because maybe Yontif Sheni is not, yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll stop here. Okay. I don't know how you turn this guy off.